Welcome to the court of rumors.
There is a certain kind of story that arrives fully formed, not grown, not investigated, but presented, complete with outrage, conclusion, and a ready-made villain. This week, we are told Australians don't want Harry and Meghan. Taxpayers must not fund their security. A petition, 30,000 signatures plus. A movement, apparently. All of it appearing with remarkable speed and even more remarkable agreement. Now, one might ask, with genuine concern and curiosity, when did this become necessary? Because in Australia, security is not handed out like a courtesy title. It is not bestowed because someone is famous or disliked or convenient to debate. It is governed quietly, methodically, by the Australian Federal Police. And their standard is not emotional. It is risk. So one must wonder, why is it that some Australians, some even in the public, in the media, who should know better, are promoting this so-called concern? Welcome. This is Majesty Sussex Report, and I'm Antonio. Thank you for spending some of your very valuable time here with us. Don't go anywhere.
Spin the wheel again tonight, turn the shadow into light. Choose a villain for the page, feed the kingdom's hungry rage. Welcome to the court of rumors, where the stories never sleep, where the scribes tell little secrets, and the palace smiles and keeps. Ring the bells and print the proof, even when there is none to use. May knock upon the door, but lies are welcome at the court.
Thank you for sticking around. There is a pattern, and once you see it, you cannot unsee it. A headline appears, a petition emerges, a chorus of voices, sudden, synchronized, certain. And before a single fact is examined, a conclusion is already waiting for you. This time, the message is simple. Australians don't want Harry and Meghan. Taxpayers shouldn't fund their security. It sounds responsible, doesn't it? And it sounds pretty reasonable, right? But is it true? So let's step away from the noise, as we like to do here, and look at the structure beneath that noise. Because in Australia, security is not a favor, it is not a privilege, and it is certainly not granted based on headlines. Protection is handled by the Australian Federal Police, and their mandate is very clear. Security follows risk. Where there's a risk, security will follow. The last thing any country wants, any country, is to have high-profile people come into the country without proper assessment and something happens to them. No one wants that. No one. So security follows risk, not reputation, not popularity, not politics. When high-profile individuals visit Australia, there are only a few scenarios. If it is an official state visit, then yes, security is publicly funded. But if it is a private visit, commercial, philanthropic, or otherwise, then the responsibility shifts. The responsibility shifts to the individual funds their own protection. Authorities may coordinate, they may assess the threats, they may step in if necessary, but there is no automatic burden placed on the taxpayers. That is not an option. That is protocol. Okay? So we've got that pretty much figured out. And yet, suddenly, a group appears, and this group called themselves Beyond Australia. Beyond to where? But let's go. 30,000 plus signatures. These are concerned citizens, they tell us. Urgent warning. Now, this group has no clear history, no established presence, no transparent leadership. Just one peculiar message, perfectly timed. Think about it, all right? I will say that most intelligent people, I even hate saying intelligent people, reasonable people, people that can reason, would pause there for a second. Because this is where clarity becomes power. If security is already governed by risk, if private visits are already privately funded, then what exactly is being protested? What, like it's a real question. What exactly is being protested? And then something else happens. Okay? The same story echoes across outlets tied to News Corp, Murdoch, and Daily Mail and General Trust. Viscount Rotmere. Different voices, same tone, same conclusion. Australia doesn't want you. Taxpayers shouldn't pay. Repetition, repetition, repetition becomes reality. Not because it is proven, but because it is everywhere. Now think about it. You're not plugged into this royal stuff, to Harry, Meghan, the hatred and all of that. You just know that they left the royal family. There's some animosity there. They've said some mean things about Meghan, about Harry. I don't care. I don't concern myself. But what I do concern myself about is how much tax I'm being charged, right? What I'm concerned about is the high cost of living. What I'm concerned about is that where is government spending the money we send them without my hard working dollars, right? I'm concerned about that. So when I see a headline that says my taxpayer money should not be paying for Harry and Meghan's private visit to Australia, I may think, yeah, that sounds logical. I don't want my hardly owned income that is taxed to the wazoo to go and pay for these two rich people. No way. No way. But is that what is really happening? Is it? But now, even when I ignore that, I start seeing this stuff appearing on TV shows, in the news. I see it in publications all over. And it's been repeated, 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 repeated. This is not new, people. It is a method. I've spoken to you before about this, and I keep saying it. Yes, we should look at the authors. Yes, we should look at the people who are in front of the camera, but ultimately we need to look at the owner structure. Who owns the damn thing? Who owns it? Because the ownership determines the narrative that is going to go through those institutions, those publications, those TV shows, those particular shows. Who owns the damn thing? So the methodology that they use, you introduce a premise. The premise is here, Australians don't want Harry and Meghan here. We don't want our taxpayer money to go to their security. So you introduce a premise, even if it is flawed. It doesn't matter if it's flawed. You amplify it. By all means, you amplify it, because then it amplifies in the media, and then we have the derangers, the zombies, right? The mindless zombies. They take it, they rejoice, and they amplify it even more. So one story, whether invented by a bot or not, is now amplified so it reaches millions of people. And it gets credit and becomes legitimate because then you have other legitimate outlets covering that story without doing proper investigative reporting. I am not a journalist. I am just some schmuck, some guy with a microphone, laptop, a university degrees that allowed me to at least think and research and have an understanding, but you don't need it. If you have a mind of your own and you question things, you should be able to do this very easily. But even journalists, so-called, they just repeat and repeat the same hatred. They amplify it until it feels undeniable, until it becomes truth. And by the time the facts arrive, the audience has already chosen a side. When a certain publication said that Meghan Sussex was in a certain website that showed corn, if you know what corn rhymes with, begins with a P. So when it came time for them to apologize for what they had published, of course, the apology was almost unseen in a tiny little square in a corner of the newspapers. Because the aim is not the headline. The story is there to reinforce a narrative. And that narrative has been building 8 years strong. It's relentless and it does not stop. And they have allies. If you think they don't, then you are being naive. They've got allies. So here is an example of what I'm trying to convey here. Do you know who Dylan Howard is? Do anyone knows that name? Who is Dylan Howard? Well, Dylan Howard is an Australian-born entertainment journalist, tabloid media executive, and author, best known for his role as the editor-in-chief of the National Enquirer and chief content officer at American Media Inc., AMI, between 2013 and 2020. He is known for spearheading major celebrity expose and was heavily involved in political scandals, particularly those surrounding the US President Trump. So his career has been in tabloid, right? Chief executive or editor-in-chief of the National Enquirer and Radar Online, and was the chief content officer of publishers such as the US Weekly, and Star Magazine. He was heavily involved in the Catch and Kill scandal. He was central to the Catch and Kill scheme where AMI purchased negative stories about Trump, including those from Karen McDougal, and suppressed them during the 2016 election. In the Trump trial involvement, Howard was named as an alleged co-conspirator in Donald Trump's hush money criminal trial in 2024, having helped manage suppressed deals with figures like Stormy Daniels. On top of that, he was identified as part of Harvey Weinstein's army of spies used to dig up dirt on the movie mogul accusers. So the accusers who would accuse Harvey Weinstein, he, Dalen Howard, would then, through his spies and people, dig up dirt on those actors, actresses, or whomever, and then publish whatever scandal they could in their publication. I mean, really. I mean, when Jeff Bezos, okay, Amazon, when Jeff Bezos identified and accused him of a blackmail attempt over personal photos in 2019, he was also accused of sexual harassment by multiple female employees in 2017, although he denied the claims. Allegedly, allegedly, allegedly. So, us just looking at who wrote the article, of course, let's call them out. But who owns the damn thing? Who owns it? And then when we dig into who owns it, we see the kind of, oh, I don't even want to call them people. But at the same time, I don't want to degrade myself to their level. This is the type of species that run these things. And we must call them out. We must. We cannot and must not let these things stay idle and accumulate more people in their nasty, nasty, disgusting narrative. Because the more we stand by idle and not do what energy, what health, what God has given us, the intelligence, the reasoning to combat these evil, then what are we doing? Then what are we doing? But there is a truth. Stripped of narrative, there is no policy that automatically assigns taxpayer-funded security to private visits like this. There is no evidence that such funding has been granted. And there is no transparency around the group now claiming to speak for an entire nation. My question is, why aren't outlets that are legitimate, instead of running this story, to investigate, call out who the spokesperson is or spokesperson, call out the organization? Are they registered? Do they have a website? Who are these people? Who are these people? It's not being done. You're either part of the problem or you're part of the solution. So we arrive at this place here, and I don't want this to be about outrage. This has to be about taking initiative, about questioning, about putting pressure where pressure belongs. So, one simple question, a necessary one. If the claim isn't accurate, if the claim is not true, why is it being pushed so loudly? Why is it being pushed so loudly? Because sometimes the story is not the headline, you see. It is the intention behind it. And once you understand that, you are no longer reaching, you are seeing. Once you understand that the headline is not the story, it's the intention. And that intention is to reinforce what they've been saying for 8 years. whether it's true or not, many innocent people now believe that the headline is truth. There is a point where a story stops being a story and becomes something else, something with consequence, something with weight, something that can no longer be dismissed as noise. Because when we speak about headlines, when we speak about narratives, we are not speaking into a vacuum. We are speaking into a world filled with real people, real instability, real unpredictability. And if only one one person decides to do something that their mental state makes them or allows them to, not a movement, not a petition, not 30,000 signatures, just one person, convinced, agitated, unwell, or pushed beyond reason to turn a narrative into an act. Indeed, Prince Harry, Duke of Sussex himself, has spoken about this risk. He describes something chilling in its simplicity, that it takes only one individual with something as small as a bottle of liquid to get close enough, and in a single moment, a life is permanently altered. A family is permanently altered. Not threatened, not debated, altered forever. Let that sit with you. Let that sit with you. This is where mental health enters the conversation. Because when narratives are repeated relentlessly, emotionally, provocatively, they do not land the same way on every mind. Some hear opinion, others hear justification, and a very small few, what they hear is permission. We have seen this before. During the spread of the conspiracy known as Pizzagate, repeated recently in Congress, false claims were amplified again and again until one man, armed, convinced, walked into a restaurant to rescue children that did not exist. No children, no operation, just a narrative, taken seriously by the wrong person. This is not abstract warning. This is a pattern. Because in the case of Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex, and Prince Harry, they have already been documented threats, individuals investigated and prosecuted, extremist rhetoric directed towards their family. These are not hypothetical. They're not inventions of my mind. These are on the record. This is not me sitting behind a microphone inventing what headline is going to get clicks. At one point, Prince Harry threat level, as acknowledged in legal proceedings and reporting, was assessed at the highest level, not lowest, the highest level. And yet, the public conversation often moves as if the danger is exaggerated, or worse, imagined. Even in New York City, when a high speed pursuit involving paparazzi occurred, the initial reaction in some corners was laughter, dismissal. Only later came the correction. Yes, there was a pursuit. Yes, there was risk. But by then, the tone had already been set. This is how it works. A concern, real or manufactured, is amplified. A narrative is repeated. And slowly, the individuals at the center of it are no longer seen as people, but as characters, debatable, disposable, distant. So when headlines suggest they don't deserve protection, they are not wanted, they are burden, we must ask, what happens when those words meet the wrong mind on the wrong day? Because security is not a luxury, my friends. It is not a reward. It is not a popularity contest. It is a response to risk. And when that risk is publicly minimized, distorted, or dismissed, it does not disappear. It becomes harder to see. And that is the danger. Not just the headline, but what the headline makes possible. None of you are going to like what I'm going to say. And I don't want to say it. But I, same as you, we know what they want. Taking away security, making every and any business endeavor that the Sussexes embark on, they want it to fail. They want them to have no resources, economic resources in order to pay the high level of security that they need to have in order to protect themselves, their families, their children. What do you think they are looking for? What do you think their ultimate outcome that they want to happen? What do you think it is?
I've covered the royals for 30 years, including a decade when I lived in London. I have never seen anyone in the royal family or royal family adjacent respond in this manner to a petition. Why do they have to comment on everything? You give it legitimacy when you comment on it. And it's so petty. That's not what we're about. To comment that 98.98% of us.
Let me give you the quote from the Sussexes, if you don't mind. They've said, "It is a moot point. The trip is being funded privately. I'm not sure what this petition hopes to achieve." Of course, if you wanted to dive into the ridiculousness of this petition as an agenda for spreading misinformation, then one could equally hypothesise that there are approximately 26.5 million Australians who haven't signed it. That's 99.98% of the population, who must therefore agree with the taxpayer picking up the tab for their visit. They said, of course, that is another equally stupid assertion to make, but why let common sense get in the way of a good story? That's what they've said. Just dig that apart for us, if you don't mind, Angela.
I've covered the royals for...
This sounds quite familiar to another commentator that said something to the regards of, I don't understand why they would have to comment on this. The royals don't comment on things. Why are they commenting? Why are they correcting us? Why are they telling the truth? Why are they telling the truth? Now, her indignation that they dared to tell the truth, to correct the record. You must not correct the record. You must let them say what they want to say, continue the lies, and continue to grow negative narratives against you. That is the premise under which she is so indignant. Now this. Now we have pivoted, of course. And just like that, the story changes. Not disappeared, not corrected, but redirected. What began as a warning about taxpayer-funded security has now become something else entirely. A new headline, a new concern, a new emotional appeal. We don't want the as ever brand in Australia. Support local businesses. Buy Australian. At first glance, it sounds reasonable, even admirable. Who wouldn't support small businesses? Who wouldn't want local economies to strive? But look closer, because this is not a general campaign to support Australian entrepreneurs. It is a targeted message aimed at one individual, one brand, one woman only. And that distinction matters. Because what we are witnessing is not a new concern, it is a pivot. When one argument does not hold, you do not abandon the narrative. You replace the entry point. Yesterday, the argument was they are costing taxpayers money. Today, it becomes they are taken from local businesses. Different language, same destination. Now, let's bring this back to reality. Australia is not a closed market. It is a global economy. American brands operate in Australia. British brands operate in Australia. European brands operate in Australia every single day, without petitions, without headlines, without outrage. So the question becomes, why this brand? Why this person? Why now? Because if the principle were truly about protecting local businesses, then the conversation would be broader, consistent, applied equally, but it isn't. It's the same thing like how the Sussex's spokesperson responded to that petition. What the spokesperson said is absolutely logical, makes sense, and their petition is laughable. There are no campaigns against major multinational corporations, global retail chains, international luxury brands, all of which operate daily with local businesses. And yet, no headlines, no urgency, no petitions. But introduce a brand connected to Meghan, Duchess of Sussex, and suddenly, the language of protection appears. This is not economic policy. It is narrative framing. Take a legitimate concern, the cost of living, the pressure on small businesses, and attach it to a convenient target so that disagreement feels like principle and criticism feels like duty. First, security, then taxpayers, now local businesses. 3 different arguments, moving in sequence, reinforcing the same conclusion. And so, again, we are left with a question. Not emotional, not reactionary, but precise. If this is truly about supporting local businesses, why is the concern so selective? Because when a narrative must constantly change its reason, it is worth asking whether the reason was ever the point.
Yesterday was International Day of Remembrance of the victims of slavery and the transatlantic slave trade. And at the United Nations General Assembly, the world was asked one simple question. Do you acknowledge that the transatlantic slave trade was the gravest crime against humanity and that reparations are owed? 123 countries said yes. 52 countries, silent. And 3 said no. Can you guess who they are? The resolution was spearheaded by Ghana, speaking on behalf of the entire African bloc, the largest regional bloc in the UN. Ghana's president, John Dramani Mahama, addressed the assembly ahead of the vote. He said, I quote, "Today we come together in solemn solidarity to affirm truth and pursue a route to healing and reparative justice." Mahama also noted the significance of the day in which this vote is taking place, honoring the memory of around 13 million African men, women, and children enslaved over several centuries. The resolution itself didn't mince its words. It named the trafficking and the enslavement of Africans as the gravest crime against humanity by reason of its definitive break in world history, its scale, its duration, its systemic nature, its brutality, and enduring consequences. Consequences that continue to structure the lives of all people through racial systems of labor, property, and capital. It calls on member nations to engage in talks on reparatory justice, including a full and formal apology, measures of restitution, compensation, rehabilitation, and changes to laws and programs to address racism and systemic discrimination. And how did the world respond? 123 countries said yes, the majority of African, Caribbean, and Latin American nations, countries whose very history are inseparable from slavery and colonization. 52 countries, however, abstained. The United Kingdom and all 27 members of the European Union abstained. That's Britain, which dominated transatlantic slave trade for over a century. That's France, Portugal, Spain, the Netherlands, and many more. The very nations whose ships, ports, and plantations made the slave trade possible. They all chose not to vote yes. Then there's the 3 countries that said no. Have you guessed who they are? Argentina, Israel, and the US. The US said it does not recognize the legal right to reparations for historical wrongs that were not illegal under international law at the time they occurred. It also objected to the resolution's attempt to rank crimes against humanity, arguing that doing so diminishes the suffering of other atrocities. Are we shocked? The resolution, of course, is non-binary. No country is legally compelled to pay a single penny. But 123 nations just told the world where they stand. And so did the 55 who didn't.
And so we step back, not from the noise, but from what the noise is trying to do. Because we have seen it now, the sequence, the structure, the shift. First, a question of security, then a question of cost, and finally, for now, a question of belonging. Each one on its own presented as reasonable, even responsible, but together they form something else. A pattern, a clear pattern, not designed to inform, but to influence, not to clarify, but to condition. And this is where we must be careful. Because when narratives are repeated often enough, they do more than shape opinion. They shape perception. And perception, over time, shapes reality. But reality has its own voice, and it does not shout, it simply remains. The reality that security is based on risk, not headlines. The reality that danger does not disappear because it is inconvenient to acknowledge. The reality that individuals, no matter how public, are still human, still vulnerable, still deserving of safety. And perhaps most importantly, the reality that truth does not need repetition to exist, only recognition. So when the next headline arrives, as it surely will, loud, certain, insistent, pause. Pause. Look not just at what it is being said, but at how it is being built. What came before it? What it replaced? What it is asking you to feel? Because once you begin to see the pattern, my friends, you are no longer inside it. And in a world full of noise, that may be the most powerful position of all, not to be inside the noise. And so here we are at the conclusion of today's episode. I am sure with my luck, this this video is going to take forever to upload because lately it's been taking over 30 minutes, 40 minutes at least. But it is what it is. Thank you once again for being here. If this is the first time you are discovering us, please do subscribe. It means a lot to the channel. And it means that our message can get out there to more like-minded people who want to know the truth and not be sucked into this narrative of the Sussexes. The truth is important, back in the truth is important. Research is important. And when people are just saying things out of their, then it's likely just a bunch of crap. Okay? So thank you again for your support. Do press that like button, do share, do comment, all those things that the algorithm wants us to do in order for this message to be amplified, for this channel to stay relevant. It means a lot to me because I care about the Sussexes. I care what happens. I care how they're perceived. I care about the truth, ultimately. Thank you once again for your support. For those who are in the chat, thank you for your patience always. For those in the cloud here, thank you. Thank you. And for those of you watching this at some time, somewhere, in some country, know that the truth is important and that your media might not be telling you the truth. Know who owns the newspapers. Know who owns that website online. Know who owns the TV stations. Look at the narrative that they're selling you. Okay? Thank you. Be kind to yourself. Be kind to your loved ones. And to those strangers crossing your path, do your best to be kind. You might be the only kind thing or person they might have encountered all day, all week, all month. Take care of yourselves until we speak again. Bye for now. Mwah.
Call the prince a broken man. Say the woman holds his hand. Say she pulled him from his kin. Say the trouble starts with him. Dress the tale in royal tone. Say the fault is theirs alone. Meanwhile shadows down the hall guard the secrets none recall. Old men whisper near the throne. Stories borrowed, never known. She's the storm, the courtiers say. Blame the outsider today. Write the headlines, sell the fight. Turn distraction into light. For the kingdom sleeps much better when the scandal's out of sight. Welcome to the court of rumors, where the ink runs red with blame, where the same old ancient story finds a slightly different name. Oh, point the crowd the other way. Give them someone new to slay. Truth may knock upon the door, but lies are welcome at the court. But truth is patient. Truth is slow. It waits where quiet rivers flow. And when the curtain finally falls, the truth will echo through these halls. Welcome to the court of rumors, where the whispers wear a crown, where the scribes protect the kingdom by tearing others down. Oh, but every empire built on lies eventually meets the light, and the court that fed on rumor cannot silence truth forever. Candles fading, ink runs dry.